Teachings of Lord Caitanya, the Golden Avatar, a treatise on factual spiritual life by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Chapter 16, Conclusion of Teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Persons who cultivate knowledge for liberation are of three kinds: those who simply desire liberation, those who are liberated already, even while in this material existence, and those who are actually self-realized. There are many persons in this world who desire liberation, and sometimes they engage in devotional service for this purpose. It is corroborated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-26 that those who actually desire liberation give up all kinds of demigod worship and, without envy, concentrate their minds in the worship of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When such persons come in contact with a pure devotee, they engage in the devotional service of Krishna and give up the idea of liberation. A verse in the Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya states, Aho Mahatman Bahu Dosha Dushto Pyakina Bhatyesha Bhavo Gunena Sat Sangha Makyena Sukha Vahena Kritadhyano Jena Krisha Mumuksha. Quote, O great soul, although there are many flaws within this miserable life, there is yet one glory: the association of pure devotees. Cultivate such association. By it, our desire for liberation diminishes. Unquote. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11:2-37, it is stated that man's fear is due to his material conception of life and to his forgetting his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, he finds himself having only perverted memories. This occurs due to the spell of material energy. One who has sufficient intelligence will engage in full devotional service and regard the Supreme Lord as his spiritual master and worshipable God. The conclusion is that no one can attain a revolution in consciousness without engaging in devotional service to the Lord. When one is actually free from material contamination, he can fully engage himself in Krishna consciousness. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-4, it is clearly said that one who engages in spiritual life to understand things as they are, but who lacks all intention of engaging in Krishna consciousness, simply achieves trouble for his undertaking. There is no substance to his life. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore it is the duty of every living entity to serve that supreme whole. Without such service, the living entity falls into material contamination. Lord Caitanya concluded his teachings to Sanatana Goswami by pointing out that the 6 kinds of Atmaramas, or transcendentalists, engage in some kind of devotional service to Krishna. In other words, at some time or another, all the transcendentalists ultimately come to understand the necessity of rendering devotional service to Krishna and become fully Krishna conscious. Even if one is very learned or extravagant, he can still engage in the devotional service of the Lord. The 6 kinds of transcendentalists are the neophyte transcendentalist, the absorbed transcendentalist, one who is situated in transcendence, one who desires liberation, one who is actually liberated, and one who is engaged in activities in his constitutional position. All of these are Atmaramas. When a person becomes an Atmarama, or a great thinker in Krishna consciousness, he fully engages in devotional service. According to the grammatical rules, there are many kinds of Atmaramas, but one sense of the word is sufficient to represent the others. In the collective sense, all the Atmaramas are inclined to worship the Supreme Lord Krishna. The mystic who worships the Supersoul within himself is also an Atmarama. The Atmarama yogis are of 2 kinds, Sagarbha and Nigarbha. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2:28, quote, Some yogis meditate within their heart on the localized Vishnu, who is four-handed and who holds four symbols: conch, disc, mace, and lotus. Unquote. The yogi who thinks of the four-handed Vishnu becomes absorbed in devotional ecstasy and shows the symptoms of that state. Sometimes he cries, and sometimes he feels separation from the Lord. In this way, he merges in transcendental bliss, resulting in his becoming entrapped like a fish. The Sagarbha and Nigarbha yogis can be further divided into three categories: the beginner, the advanced yogi, and he who has attained perfection. These yogis are described in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are trying to ascend the path of mystic yoga are called Arurukshu yogis, beginners. In Arurukshu yoga, one practices various sitting postures and concentrates the mind. One ascends the path of yoga by means of meditation and detachment, and when one is no longer attached to working for sense gratification, he gradually becomes free. At that time, he attains a state of ecstasy called yoga rudha. If such a mystic yogi somehow or other comes in contact with a saintly person, he becomes a devotee of Krishna. The word Urukram has already been explained. It indicates the Supreme Lord. All the Atmaramas are engaged in devotional service to Urukram. Before engaging in devotional service, such transcendentalists are called Shantas, or pacified devotees. The word Atma, or self, is sometimes translated as mind. Sometimes mental speculators present philosophical theories in different ways, but when they come in contact with saintly persons engaged in devotional service, they also become devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-18 describes the two classes of yogis, Sagarbha and Nigarbha, as follows. Quote, "The yogis begin their practice of yoga by worshipping the abdomen, and they try to concentrate their attention on their intestines. Gradually, their meditation rises to the heart, and they concentrate the mind there. Then they gradually direct their attention to the top of the head. One who can raise his meditation to that position is understood to have become perfect and to be no longer subject to birth and death." Unquote. Even such yogis render causeless devotional service to the Lord when they come in contact with pure devotees. The word Atma also means an endeavor. In every practice, there is some endeavor, and the ultimate endeavor is the endeavor to reach the highest perfectional stage of devotional service. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.18, it is stated that one should try to attain the highest goal, which cannot be attained either in the higher or lower planetary systems. The idea is that material happiness and misery are automatically available in all planetary systems in the course of time, but the highest achievement, devotional service, cannot be attained anywhere without endeavor. Therefore, in the Brihan Naradiya Purana, it is said that one who is serious about understanding the highest perfectional stage of devotional service can become successful simply by his endeavor. One cannot attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service without personal endeavor. As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogang tang jainamam upayanti te. Quote, "To those who are constantly rendering devotional service to me with love, I, who am situated in everyone's heart, give the intelligence by which they can make undeterred progress in devotional activities." Unquote. The word Atma also means dhriti, patience and perseverance. By patience and perseverance, one can achieve the highest stage of devotional service. As far as the word Muni is concerned, there are additional meanings. The word also refers to a bird and a large black bee. Another meaning of the word Nirgrantha is a foolish person. Thus, even birds, bees, and foolish people engage in the service of the Supreme Lord when they are favored by the pure devotee. Indeed, it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-14 that the birds in Vrindavan are devoted to the service of the Supreme Lord. It is also stated in the Bhagavatam 10:15-6 that the black bees in Vrindavan always follow Krishna and Balaram. In that verse, Sri Krishna describes to Balaram the devotional service the bees were rendering unto him, Lord Balaram. Ete linas taba yasho, kila loka tirtang, gayanta adi purushanu patang bhajante, prayo ami muni gana bhavadiya mukya, gudhang vanepi na jahatyana gatma daivam. Quote, O supremely virtuous one, O original personality of Godhead, just see how these bees are following you, glorifying your transcendental fame, and thus worshiping you. Actually, these bees are not as they appear. They are great sages who are taking this opportunity to worship the Supreme Soul. Although you are not knowable by ordinary persons, they know you, and they are following and glorifying you. Unquote. In the next verse, in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:15-7, Krishna describes the similar reception given to Balaram by the peacocks and cuckoos of Vrindavan. Quote, O worshipable one, just see how the peacocks returning to their nests are receiving you with full pleasure. These peacocks are just like the damsels of Vraj. The cuckoos on the branches of the trees are also receiving you in their own way. The residents of Vrindavan are so glorious that everyone is prepared to render devotional service to the Lord. Unquote. Another verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:35-11 describes a similar reception given to Krishna by the birds of Vrindavan. Quote, Oh, just see how the cranes and swans on the water are singing the glories of the Lord. Indeed, they are standing in the water, meditating on him and worshiping him. Unquote. It is stated elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 2:4-18, quote, Even the aborigines and uncivilized human beings like Kiratas, Hunas, Andhras, Pulindas, Pulkushas, Abhiras, Shumpas, Yavanas, and Kasas, as well as many other such human beings, can all be purified simply by taking shelter of the pure devotees. Unquote. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami offered his respectful obeisances unto Lord Vishnu, whose devotees can work so wonderfully. Another meaning of the word dhriti is to realize oneself as elevated. In this state, one feels that he is free from all miseries and is elevated to the highest platform of life. All devotees of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness are free from all kinds of material pleasures and miseries. They are fully absorbed in the service of the Lord, and they are always jolly by virtue of their engagement in his transcendental service. They are experienced men of happiness. Indeed, they are so happy that they do not even wish to be promoted to the spiritual planets, for they are happy in every sphere of life. Being fulfilled in the transcendental service of the Lord, they desire neither material objects nor material sense pleasures. As stated by the 6 Goswamis, quote, Persons whose senses are fixed in the service of the Supreme Lord can be called peaceful. Unquote. Thus, the word Atmarama indicates that even birds, beasts, and fools, in short, everyone, can become attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna, engage in his service, and become liberated. Still another meaning of Atma is intelligence. One who has special intelligence is also called Atmarama. The Atmaramas with special intelligence are of two kinds. One is the learned sage, and the other is the fool without book knowledge. Both of these can have an opportunity to associate with a pure devotee. Even the foolish Atmaramas can give up everything and engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:8, it is said that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the origin of everything, that everything emanates from him, and that anyone who is actually intelligent understands this and engages in his service. A verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 2:7-46 states, quote, To say nothing of persons who are intelligent enough to study the Vedas, even less intelligent persons, like women, laborers, hunas, and shabaras, as well as the birds and beasts, can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life by engaging in the devotional service of the Lord." Unquote. As previously quoted, Bhagavad Gita 10:10 also indicates that when a person becomes highly intelligent and engages in Krishna consciousness, Krishna reciprocates by giving him the intelligence by which he can be promoted to the abode of the Supreme Lord. The Lord then told Sanatana Goswami that the association of good devotees, engagement in the transcendental service of the Lord, the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, and residence in a holy place like Vrindavan or Mathura are all very important for elevation to the transcendental plane. One need not practice all 5 of these items. If one is expert in just one of them, he will without fail be elevated to the stage of love of Godhead. One who is actually intelligent gives up all material desires and engages in the transcendental service of Krishna. The influence of devotional service is such that a person who engages in it gives up all material desires and becomes fully attached to Krishna, being inspired by the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Such is the beauty of the Lord in the eyes of his devotee. Another meaning of the word Atma is nature. In this case, the word Atmarama indicates that everyone is enjoying the particular nature he has acquired. But the ultimate nature, the eternal nature of the living entity, is to serve the Supreme Lord. One who attains to the perfection of understanding his real nature as eternal servant of the Lord gives up his designative, material or bodily conception of life. That is real knowledge. Those who are in pursuit of knowledge and who get the opportunity to associate with a pure devotee also engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Sages like the 4 Kumaras, as well as fools and birds, can engage in the Lord's transcendental service. By being favored with Krishna's causeless mercy, anyone can be elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness. One who becomes attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna begins devotional service. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:15-8, Krishna glorifies the land of Vrindavan as he addresses Balaram in this way: Dhanyayam adya dharani trina virudhastvat pada sprisho druma lata kara jabhim rista nadyo drayaha kaga mrigaha sada yava lokair gopyon tarena bujayorapi yat spriha srihi. Quote, "This land of Vrajabhumi is made glorious by the touch of your feet. Being touched by your fingers, the creepers have also become glorious. When you look on the hills, rivers, and lower animals, they too are all made glorious, and the gopis, being embraced by your transcendental arms, are also made glorious." Unquote. The gopis glorified Vrindavan in the following words, quote, "Dear friends, all these inhabitants of Vrajabhumi, everyone, including the birds, beasts, and trees, are glorified when they see Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram singing on their flutes as they go to the pasturing ground with their friends." Unquote. The word Atma also means this body. The yogis who practice bodily exercises, considering the body to be the self, are also elevated to the transcendental service of the Lord if they associate with pure devotees. There are many people who believe the body to be the self, and they are engaged in many fruitive activities, including bathing rituals and ordinary worldly activities. But when they come in contact with a pure devotee, they also engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18-12, it is stated, quote, "O my dear Sutta Goswami, we have become darkened by the sacrificial smoke of fruitive activities, but you have given us the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet." Unquote. It is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:21-31, quote, "The waters of the Ganges flow from the tip of the lotus feet of Krishna, and by bathing in that water, everyone, including fruitive actors and all sages, can wash dirty things from the mind." Unquote. Even those who believe that the body is the self, or those who are full of material desires, are also, in a sense, Atmarama. When they associate with the pure devotees of the Lord, they give up their material desires and become perfect in the service of the Lord. The best example of this is found in the Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya 728, wherein Dhruva Maharaj said, Stana bilashi tapasi stito hang twang praptavan deva munindra guyam ka chung vichin van api divya ratnang swamin kritartosmi varang na yache. Quote, My dear Lord, I came to worship you because I desired some land on this earth. But fortunately, I have attained you, who are beyond even the perception of great sages and saintly persons. I came to search out some particles of colored glass, but instead I found a very valuable gem like you. I am satisfied, and I do not desire to ask anything of you. There is also another meaning to the word nirgrantha. The word can also mean foolish hunter or wretched poor man. There is an instance of such a hunter who attained salvation and engaged himself in the devotional service of the Lord simply by associating with the pure devotee, Narada. Indeed, Lord Caitanya told Sanatana Goswami the following story of the hunter's meeting with Narada. Once there was a hunter in the forests of Prayag who was fortunate enough to meet Narada Muni when the great sage was returning from Vaikuntha after visiting Lord Narayana. Narada came to Prayag to bathe in the confluence of the Ganges and Jamuna. While passing through the forest, Narada saw a bird lying on the ground. The bird was half killed, having been pierced by an arrow, and it was chirping piteously. Further on, Narada saw a deer flopping about in agony. Further, he saw that a boar was also suffering, and in another place he saw a rabbit twitching in pain. All this made him feel very compassionate, and he began to think, Who is the foolish man who has committed such sins? In general, devotees of the Lord are compassionate toward the suffering living entities, and so what to speak of the great sage Narada? He became very much aggrieved by this scene, and after proceeding a few steps, he saw the hunter engaged in hunting with bows and arrows. The hunter's complexion was very black, and his eyes were red. It appeared to be dangerous just to see him standing there with his bow and arrows, looking just like an associate of Yamaraj, death. Seeing him, Narada Muni entered deeper into the forest to approach him. As Narada Muni passed through the forest, all the animals who were caught in the hunter's traps fled away. The hunter became very angry at this, and he was just about to call Narada vile names, but due to the influence of saintly Narada, the hunter could not utter such blasphemies. Rather, with gentle behavior, he asked Narada, My dear sir, why have you come here while I am hunting? Have you strayed from the general path? Because you have come here, all the animals in my traps have fled. And there is a plate depicting this. And the caption says, After proceeding a few steps, Narada saw the hunter engaged in hunting with bow and arrows. Yes, I am sorry, Narada replied. I have come to you to find my own path and to inquire from you. While on the path, I have seen that there are many boars, deer, and rabbits lying on the forest floor, half dead and flopping about. Who has committed these sinful acts? What you have seen is all right, the hunter replied. It was done by me. If you are hunting all these poor animals, why don't you kill them at once? Narada asked. You half kill them, and they are writhing in their death pangs. This is a great sin. If you want to kill an animal, why don't you kill it completely? Why do you leave it half killed and allow it to die flopping around? My dear Lord, the hunter replied, my name is Mrigari, enemy of the animals. I am simply following the teachings of my father, who taught me to half kill animals and leave them flopping about. When a half-dead animal suffers, I take great pleasure in it. I beg only one thing from you, Narada implored. Please accept it. Oh, yes, sir, I shall give you whatever you like, the hunter said. If you want some animal skins, come to my house. I have many skins of animals, including tigers and deer. I shall give you whatever you like. I do not want such things, Narada replied. But I do want something else. Since you kindly agreed to grant it to me, I shall tell you. Please, henceforth from tomorrow, whenever you kill an animal, please kill it completely. Don't leave it half dead. My dear sir, what are you asking of me? What is the difference between half killing an animal and killing it completely? If you half kill the animals, they suffer great pain, Narada explained. And if you give too much pain to other living entities, you commit great sin. There is a great offense committed when you kill an animal completely, but the offense is much greater when you half kill it. Indeed, the pain which you give half-dead animals will have to be accepted by you in a future birth. Although the hunter was very sinful, his heart became softened, and he became afraid of his sins by virtue of his association with a great devotee like Narada. Those who are grossly sinful are not at all afraid of committing sins, but here we can see that because his purification began in the association of a great devotee like Narada, the hunter became afraid of his sinful activities. The hunter therefore replied, My dear sir, from my very childhood, I have been taught to kill animals in this way. Please tell me how I can counteract all the offenses and sinful activities I have committed. I am surrendering unto your feet. Please save me from all the reactions to the sinful activities I have committed in the past, and please direct me to the proper path so that I can be free. If you actually want to follow my directions, I can tell you the real path by which you can be freed from these sinful reactions. I shall follow whatever you say without hesitation, the hunter agreed. Narada then told him to first break his bow. Only then would Narada disclose the path of liberation. You are asking me to break my bow, the hunter protested. But if I break it, what will be the means of my livelihood? Don't worry about your livelihood, Narada said. I shall send you sufficient grains so you can live. The hunter then broke his bow and fell down at the feet of Narada. Narada got him to stand up, and he instructed him. Just go to your home and distribute whatever money and valuables you have to the devotees and the Brahmins. Then come out and follow me, wearing only one cloth. Construct a small thatched house on the river bank, and sow a tulsi plant by that house. Just circumambulate the tulsi tree, and every day taste one fallen leaf. Above all, always chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As far as your livelihood is concerned, I shall send you the grains you need, but you must accept only as much grain as you require for yourself and your wife. Narada then revived the half-dead animals, and getting freed from their dreadful condition, they fled away. Upon seeing Narada execute this miracle, the black hunter was struck with wonder. After taking Narada to his home, he bowed down again at his feet. Narada returned to his place, and the hunter, after returning home, began to execute the instructions Narada had given him. In the meantime, news spread among all the villages that the hunter had become a devotee. Consequently, the residents of the villages came to see the new Vaishnava. It is the Vedic custom to bring grains or fruits whenever one goes to see a saintly person, and since all the villagers saw that the hunter had turned into a great devotee, they brought eatables with them. Thus, every day he was offered grains and fruit. So much so that no less than 10 to 20 people could have eaten there. But following Narada's instructions, he did not accept more than what he and his wife required to live on. After some days passed, Narada told his friend Parvata Muni, I have a disciple. Let us go visit him and see if he is doing well. When the two great sages, Narada and Parvata, went to the hunter's home, the hunter saw his spiritual master coming from a distance and began to approach him with great respect. On his way to greet the great sages, the hunter saw that there were ants on the ground before him, and they were hindering his passage. When he reached the sages, he wanted to bow down before them, but before he did so, he carefully cleared away the ants with his cloth. When Narada saw that the hunter was trying to save the lives of the ants in this way, he was reminded of a verse from the Skanda Purana. Quote, "Is it not wonderful that a devotee of the Lord is not inclined to give any sort of pain to anyone, not even an ant?" Unquote. Although formerly the hunter had taken great pleasure in half-killing animals, since he had become a great devotee of the Lord, he was not prepared to give pain even to an ant. The hunter received the two great sages at his home and offered them a sitting place, brought water, and washed their feet. Then the hunter and his wife took some of the water and drank it, and finally they both sprinkled the water on their heads. After this, they felt ecstasy and began to dance while singing, "Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." They raised their hands and danced with their clothes flying. When the two great sages saw this ecstasy of love of Godhead manifest in the body of the hunter, Parvata Muni told Narada, "You are a touchstone, for by your association, even a great hunter has turned into a great devotee." There is a verse in the Skanda Purana which states, quote, "My dear Devarshi, Narada, you are glorious, and by your mercy even the lowest creature, a hunter of animals, also became elevated to the path of devotion and attained transcendental attachment for Krishna." Unquote. At length, Narada inquired of the hunter devotee, "Are you getting your foodstuffs regularly?" "You send so many people," the hunter replied, "and they bring so much food that we cannot eat it all." "That's all right," Narada replied. "Whatever you are getting is all right. Now, just continue your devotional service in that way." After Narada had spoken this, both he and Parvata Muni disappeared from the hunter's home. Lord Caitanya recited this story to show that even a hunter can be engaged in the devotional service of Krishna by the influence of pure devotees. Continuing to explain the Atma-rama verse, Lord Caitanya pointed out that the word Atma also indicates all varieties of the personality of Godhead. Generally, the personality of Godhead, himself Krishna, and his different expansions are all known as the personality of Godhead. Anyone who is engaged in the devotional service of any form or expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also called Atma-rama. All such devotees engage either in the regulative principles of devotional service or in devotional service in transcendental love. These two groups of devotees are each divided into three categories: eternal associates, those perfected in devotional service, and those newly engaged in devotional service. Newly engaged devotees can be divided into two groups: those who have already attained attachment for the Lord, and those who have not attained such attachment. When considered according to the two divisions of devotional service, namely due to attachment in transcendental love and under regulation, these classes of devotees become 8 in number. By following the regulative principles of devotion, the perfect associates of the Lord are further divided into 4 classes: the servants, the friends, the parental superiors, and the fiancés. Just as some devotees are perfected by the execution of devotional service, so some are eternally perfect. Of those following the regulative principles of devotional service, there are the advanced and the beginners, totaling 16 categories. And in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there are also 16 types of devotees. Thus, the Atma-ramas can be considered to exist in 32 divisions. If the words Muni, Nirgranta, Cha, and Api are applied to the 32 classes, then there are 58 different types of devotees. All these devotees can be described by one word: Atma-rama. There may be different kinds of trees standing in the forest, but the word tree describes them all. Thus, the Lord gave 60 different meanings to the Atma Rama verse. In addition, he said that Atma means any embodied living entity, from the first living creature Brahma down to the ant. He cited a verse from the 6th chapter of the Vishnu Purana, in which it is stated that all the energies of the Lord are spiritual. Although this is the case, the energy which is known as the source of the living entity is called spiritual, but the other energy, which is full of ignorance and is manifested in material activities, is called material nature. Even in the material creation, the living entities are innumerable. If by chance a living entity in the material world can associate with a pure devotee, he can engage in the pure devotional service of Krishna. Formerly, I thought of 60 different meanings for the Atmarama verse, the Lord told Sanatana Goswami. But here, another meaning has come to my mind by your association. After hearing the different explanations of the Atmarama verse, Sanatana Goswami was struck with wonder, and he fell down in devotion at the feet of Lord Caitanya. I understand that you are personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, Sanatana said, and by your breathing have come many manifestations of Vedic literature. You are the teacher of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you best know the meanings of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not possible for others to understand the confidential meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam without your mercy. Do not try to eulogize me in that way, the Lord told Sanatana. Just try to understand the real nature of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound representation of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. As Krishna is unlimited, so each word and each syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam has unlimited meanings. One can understand these meanings through the association of devotees. Don't then say that the Bhagavatam is simply a collection of answers to questions. There were 6 questions put to the sages of Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami answered the 6 questions in Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a verse in the Vedic literature in which Lord Shiva says, quote, "As far as the Bhagavatam is concerned, I may know it, or Shukadev or Vyasadev may know it, or we may not know it, but actually, Bhagavatam is to be understood by devotional service and from a devotee, and not by one's own intelligence or by academic commentaries." Unquote. At the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1-23, the sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami, Bruhi Yogeshware Krishne Brahmanye Dharmavarmani Swang Kashtam Adhunopete Dharma Kang Sharanangataha. Quote, "My dear sir, now that the Lord has departed for his own abode, kindly tell us whether the principles of religion have gone with him. How can we find such principles after his departure?" Unquote. The reply was given in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:343. Krishne swa damopakate dharma jnana dibi saha kalo nashta drishang esha puran narko dunodita. Quote, after Krishna departed to his abode with all religious principles, his representation, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahapurana, remains as the blazing, illuminating sun. Unquote. Lord Caitanya then told Sanatana Goswami, quote, "I was just like a madman in describing this Atmarama verse in so many ways. Do not mind if I have said something mad. But if someone becomes a madman like me, he can understand the real meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam as I have explained it." Unquote. Then Sanatana Goswami, with folded hands, fell at the feet of Lord Caitanya and prayed as follows, quote, "My dear Lord, you have asked me to prepare a book on the regulative principles of devotional service, but I belong to the lowest caste. I have no knowledge. I do not know how such an important task can be finished by me. If you will kindly give me some hints about the preparation of such a book on devotional service, it may be that I shall be qualified to write it." Unquote. The Lord then blessed him, saying, quote, "By the grace of Krishna, whatever you write will come out of your heart and be accepted. As you have requested, I will now give you some notes that you can take down. The first and foremost point is that one should accept a bona fide spiritual master. That is the beginning of spiritual life." Unquote. Lord Caitanya then requested Sanatana Goswami to write down the symptoms of a true guru and the symptoms of a true disciple. The symptoms of a guru are described in the Padma Purana. Quote, a person who is a qualified Brahmin and at the same time has all the symptoms of a devotee can become a spiritual master for all classes of men. Such a devotee and spiritual master must be respected as God himself. Even though a person may be born in a very respectable Brahmin family, he cannot become a bona fide spiritual master if he is not a devotee of the Lord. Unquote. One should not mistakenly think that a bona fide spiritual master has to be born in a so-called Brahmin family. The idea is that a spiritual master must be a qualified Brahmin. That is, he must be qualified by his activities. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam when Narada speaks of the different symptoms characterizing the 4 divisions of social life. Narada therein states that Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras should be selected by their individual qualifications. In his commentary, Sridhar Swami has noted that birth in a family of Brahmins does not necessarily mean that one is a Brahmin. One must be qualified with a Brahmin's symptoms, which are described in the Shastras. In the disciplic succession of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, there are 2 great acharyas, Thakur Narottam and Shyamananda Goswami, who were not born in Brahmin families, but were accepted as spiritual masters by many famous Brahmins, including Ganga Narayana and Ramakrishna. In this way, there are symptoms which both the prospective spiritual master and the prospective disciple must have. And both the disciple and the spiritual master must see whether the other is eligible to become either a bona fide spiritual master or a bona fide student. One should then know that the only worshipable object is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should learn the various mantras and sacred songs. The Lord then instructed Sanatan to describe the symptoms of those persons who are eligible to accept the mantras and to describe how the mantras should be understood and perfected by ritualistic performances. Then the Lord instructed Sanatan to describe initiation, morning duties, and duties of cleanliness, washing the face, brushing the teeth, and so on, the process of work, and the prayers to be recited both in the morning and the evening. The Lord also told him to describe how one should worship the spiritual master, how to mark one's body with gopi chandan, how to collect tulsi leaves, how to wash the room and temple of the Lord, and how to awaken Krishna from sleep. Then Lord Caitanya instructed Sanatan to describe different methods for worshipping the Lord, with 5-fold, 16-fold, or 50-fold paraphernalia, how to worship the Lord by offering him arti 5 times a day, and how to offer food to Krishna and lay him down on his bed. Next, Lord Caitanya instructed Sanatan to write about the characteristics of both the form of the Lord in the temple and the Shalagram Shila, and also to write about the effect of going to holy places where there are different temples of the Lord and seeing the form of God in the temple. Sanatan was also instructed to glorify the transcendental name of the Lord and to describe the different offenses one can commit while chanting the Lord's name or worshipping the deity. In the worship of the Lord, certain paraphernalia are used, such as a conch shell, water, incense, and fragrant flowers. The Lord instructed Sanatan to describe these, along with the chanting of prayers and hymns, circumambulation, and the offering of obeisances. Other topics for Sanatan to explain included following the regulative principles of Purashcharana, accepting Krishna prasadam, rejecting foodstuff not offered to Krishna, and not indulging in defaming a devotee who has the actual symptoms of a devotee. Lord Caitanya also instructed Sanatan to describe the symptoms of a holy man, the process of satisfying the sages, and the value of rejecting the society of undesirable persons and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam constantly. Also to be described were how to follow the daily, fortnightly, and monthly duties, how to observe fasting on the Ekadashi day, how to observe ceremonies like the birthday of the Lord, and how to observe fasting not only on Ekadashi but also on Janmashtami, Vamana Dwadashi, Ram Navami, and Nrsimha Chaturdashi. Lord Caitanya also instructed Sanatan to explain that it is helpful in the advancement of devotional service to avoid fast days that overlap with other days, vidha. Also to be explained were how to establish temples of the Lord, along with the general behavior, symptoms, duties, and occupation of a Vaishnava. And at every step, Lord Caitanya said, Sanatana Goswami should give documentary evidence from the Puranas. Thus, the Lord gave a summary of all the topics Sanatan should include in his book on Vaishnava regulative principles. Sanatana Goswami was a great devotee of the Lord, and he was directly instructed to spread the cult of bhakti by writing many books. There is a description of Sanatan in the Caitanya Chandrodaya, where it is said that Sanatana Goswami was one of the most important personalities in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. Sanatan's brother Rupa Goswami was also a minister in the government, but both of them gave up their lucrative government posts to become mendicants and serve the Supreme Lord. Externally, the brothers became just like ordinary mendicants, but their hearts were filled with transcendental loving service and a great love for the cowherd boy of Vrindavan. Indeed, Sanatana Goswami was dear to all pure devotees of his time. And that's the end of part 1.